Ancient civilizations, especially the ones in this region of the world, all have a common placement of settlement along with astonishing stonemasonry achievements. With one of these achievements of ancient lost technology hidden in plain sight amongst these ruins called Macayacta near Espinar, Peru in South America. This Inca settlement is said to have been built throughout 1000 to 1400 CE. What's significant about this place is that it has a few ancient structures that do not look similar to the other buildings constructed here. Their stonework is far more sophisticated and has a similar look to the monoliths built throughout the Andes such as Sacsayhuaman and Tiwanaku. Right above the entrance lies a strange and unique square cutout. For what purpose? Let's take a look inside this strange tower to see if we can find any clues to what this building once was. An odd stone object lies in the center with small corridors leading to nowhere. Would this be a burial chamber as normally stated, or was there a more technical purpose for this tower during antiquity? Along the stone walls, we can see large sections of it having an offset darker color, which is not mold. This is a part of the stone and is from fire and heat. But why only certain spots? And why would there be burn marks in an alleged tomb? Was there something else that was inside of one of these so-called tombs that could withstand a lot of heat? And was this strange stone piece a part of this object? What used to be inside of this tower, and what was its original purpose? Another similar tower can be found in this same area. This tower is a little smaller than the main one and has a few differences in the design, but this tower does not have the top part intact, which is possibly due to it being destroyed during the past. It also has a larger entryway. But one detail is still present in this one specific tower. Above the entryway lies the same indent. Could something have been attached above it to cover the entryway? Let's take a look inside for any details. When you first see the inside of this smaller tower, you can see the sides have multiple colors, but the stones located towards the top have a darker burn-like color. These blocks are noticeably different than the blocks located in the area below. If there were only burn marks towards the top, what was placed in here and burning from the top area of these towers? What were these ancient humans creating? Archaeologists have said that some of these marks on the inside walls are stains from wooden beams that supported the rock ceiling. They have found some of these wooden beams and carbon dated them to the 1300s. The only problem with that is that these towers have been recreated over thousands of years, which I'll prove to you later in this video. Dating the wooden beams does not make this a suitable piece of data to use to date these structures, as a wooden beam could have been replaced multiple times or is just a new addition to the tower. To find what possibly went inside these towers or chambers, we need to travel to another location in the Andes called Kanamara in Peru. This site was home to the Yari civilization and has primitive stonework for their buildings. This civilization is as old as almost 5000 BCE and is said to have been present around the Tiwanaku culture or had a strong and close influence from them. These primitive buildings are built on top of a more sophisticated layer of stonework made of limestone blocks. The modern explanation of these underground chambers are funerary tombs, food storages, or offerings to the gods. Here we can see ancient megalithic blocks down here. So a whole level of this was buried, and the Kanan civilization has built on top. Very crude stonework, trying to mimic the ancient stonework. Let's take a closer look. This is probably buried hundreds of years. As we can see, the precise stonework here. This is from the ancient civilization that built stonework just like Machu Picchu, Ollantaytambo, and other places. You can see these blocks are fitting perfectly together. But what's significant about this area is that it's just one of multiple areas in Kanamara that have advanced stonework at the bottom. In this building at the bottom, there is a very strange object that will give us a giant clue to tell us what these chambers were used for. The local caretaker and the archaeologists at the site both told me a story of a time before the reconstruction occurred. The local landowner would mention that during storms, lightning would often strike this one specific rocky mound. After this specific mound was uncovered and the stone house was reconstructed, it was noticed that a circular stone structure that had a lot of iron deposit was discovered in the bottom layer, with a stone lid placed on top. What we're looking at here is the stone lid that went on top of the strange structure down below. What was this lid covering? In 2004, archaeologist Marco Del Peso discovered this burial site, and inside the tube-like stone structure was an ancient mummy. This body that was found was named the Lady of Kanamara, whom was an important priestess at the time. These skeletal remains were also found with some ceramic objects and necklace beads. The skull had an incision on the side showing the advanced medical skull work done to cure this ancient human from skull deformation. The Lady of Kanamara lived during the pre-Inca era and is dated to have lived around 1500 BCE. Although, if the Yari civilization dates back to at most 5000 BCE, was this stone structure here long before this body was buried? If this ancient town was still present before its burial, it must have still held a certain function, since stone cannot be dated and only the skeleton remains were dated to try to prove the age of the site. And this is a very unique megalithic building structure. It's pretty dark to see, but thankfully we have a light. Try to get in. We have these false windows on the side. What was this? Echo. Ooh. Careful. Water pass through here. Another chamber. Chamber that goes to nowhere. What was this for? What's strange and unique is the tube-like stone structure that has an iron compound, which is normally used to enclose a lot of heat in early furnaces, bloomeries, and smelters. Normally, multiple tests need to be done to identify an altered stone, but to look for basic compounds of it, the sound of knocking on the stone will shed some truth on what this stone cylinder is made out of. It's possibly basalt limestone, but this has a lot of iron in this. While knocking on the stone tube, you can hear the echo from it. This is not just an echo effect from the chamber while knocking. It has the same effect wherever you touch it. Besides investigating this part, the local guide and caretaker have both said that this stone tube is made from granite, which explains the amount of iron in it and can explain the sound it makes while knocking on it. Could this be more than just a tomb? This entire structure and surroundings have the same properties as a pit furnace. Pit furnaces are a type of furnace used to heat large metal objects for metallurgical processes such as hardening alloys. These pit furnaces have the same exact design and layout as the ancient structure located in Kanamara. They both have a top lid, an outside chamber, an inside chamber, and an external area that links the two chambers together by small entryways. Over time, this ancient stone structure was repurposed for funerary purposes. The side blocks, which were actually basalt and not limestone, were chiseled down and cleaned to look like new. The slag from the furnace was removed, the inside was cleaned thoroughly, and any traces of serious burn damage to the stone blocks was replaced or repaired. In the article, Silver Production in the Late Pre-Hispanic and Early Colonial Periods in the region of Quebrada of Tarapaca, northern Chile, by Colleen Zori and P. Tropper from 2009. It discusses the evidence that was found regarding how the people during that time period used the smelting process to smelt silver along with other metals. Keep in mind that silver melts at 1763 Fahrenheit or 961 Celsius. Although the type of smelter that is mentioned in the article that were used during the pre-Hispanic time are smelters that are depicted here in this Inca drawing called huayras or huayras china. They are made from clay and are small tubular towers that have holes along the side. In the bottom photograph from close to 100 years ago, you can see how small the smelters are compared to the man and the donkey. These smelters are also documented in another article called The Huayras, Furnaces for Metallurgy, which talks about how these smelters can be depicted in other shapes and sizes and are able to reach 1200 Celsius, which is 2192 Fahrenheit, depending on which type of Huayras building it is. These temperatures are incredibly hot since smelting iron takes at least 1538 Celsius, which is 2800 Fahrenheit. But imagine if there were smelters or huayras built better or differently than what is depicted in their article. With the heightened temperature, this will allow them to smelt iron. Was this strange structure that is located below a primitive stone house just a tomb? Or was it actually a reused iron smelter? Was this structure used for something more than it's declared to be due to later civilizations reusing it? Another location we can find more clues to this lost technology is a far distance away from Catamarca called Sillustani, which is near Lake Titicaca. Keep in mind that all of these places, which were Espinar, Catamarca, and now Sillustani, is around 4,000 meters or 13,000 feet high in elevation. This cold region is still considered the Andes mountain range. When I traveled to Sillustani, I learned about the history and the culture of the civilization. These 40-foot stone towers at Sillustani are called chupas and are said to have been created by the Aymara civilization, who lived as far back as 110 ACE. The original purpose of these stone towers were funerary tombs, which were for the royal or the noble people from that era. Contextual evidence and radiocarbon dating from material that was found inside the towers indicate that these chupa towers were created during the 13th century. Although the contextual evidence is based upon Inca accords and legends, which may have been altered by the Spanish colonizers, and the radiocarbon dating comes from material placed inside the towers. This does not prove when the blocks were originally placed in these precise locations. These towers are much older than what they are perceived to be and have had other uses to them during the past. In this one video, it shows how there are burn marks on the inside of these blocks. Something was inside of this that caused these marks on these stones. Was there another cylindrical device inside, or another huayras or smelter inside of the Chupa Tower, which was removed long ago? Throughout the time span of the civilizations that reside across the Andes, it is well known that all materials normally were reused and buildings were reconstructed. This term is called adaptive reuse, and even before the Spanish coloners arrived during the 16th century, the Inca were recycling old stone buildings to build their own. This part of the ancient stone block that I'm pointing out is an Inca reconstruction where they carved a relief into the stone of a serpent. Even during modern history, we can find bloomeries in the state of West Virginia in the United States that were created during the 17th and 18th century. They have the same design layout as the Chupa Towers, and a lot of them are still standing, but some have been reused during the Revolutionary War and the French and Indian War, which is another example of adaptive reuse. Ancient furnaces that can smelt iron has been around for thousands of years and used with very similar and possibly less sophisticated techniques. This picture is from the scholarly article titled Science, Not Black Magic, Metal and Glass Production in Africa by Foreman Bandama and Abidemi Babatunde Babalola. It talks about the iron smelting methods of which the African tribes used during those times and showed a detailed representation of the entire process. The key detail is how these smelters were able to reduce the amount of oxygen inside of the center enclosure to create more heat while increasing the oxygen on the outside. They also describe the process of how these smelters could rapidly be cooled to form the iron correctly. Creating smelters could have gone back thousands of years, even before the Common Era. Another area in the Andes that shows this is called Moyactawa. This place has marks of deep antiquity shown everywhere throughout the complex. The land is incredibly old, and the amount of blocks from an ancient civilization lay in ruins. The same circular tombs are laid here, but since over the thousands of years, with different civilizations residing here, adaptive reuse comes into play, and these later civilizations have reused these pit smelters, bases for smelters, or bloomeries into tombs. After thousands of years, the slag, any major damages to the blocks, any residue, and any burn marks all could have been repaired, leaving behind a clean sarcophagus for the nobles. From the very bottom and the surrounding area, the vicinity could have been changed drastically over the thousands of years. In addition, other later civilizations could have used these designs of smelters for future tombs and made circular tombs from scratch. This ancient site and all of the other ancient sites that I have mentioned that have towers all have a source of water or had sources of water at some point. Over the thousands of years, Lake Titicaca and a lot of rivers have dried up. The places that were affected by the lack of water was Canamarca and Moyoctawa, which are the oldest sites. The places at Mactayacta and Sillustani, which were built later, still have some water, but they have drastically lowered over the years. The reason for these locations are for the consistent amount of water being required for cooling and washing of smelter gases. The water was poured over the stone object to help cool the stones that had compounds of copper or iron inside. Also, the furnaces required a nearby source of water to operate the bellows instead of using animal leather as bags for just basic hand pumps. These metallurgy traits are found throughout all of these ancient sites. Although, one trait that is crucial to find are ice core samples that directly correspond to finding evidence of ancient smelting. In an official 2017 article called Ice Core Evidence of Earliest Extensive Copper Metallurgy in the Andes 2,700 years ago, shows data and evidence of unnatural copper dust being found in the ice core samples. These samples were found in 3 different locations across the Andes mountain range. It specifically states, the record suggested that earliest anthropogenic air pollution, potentially originating from copper metallurgy, occurred already around 2000 BC. But another interesting piece of information in the article mentions that findings of copper dust have been present between 4500 and 2800 BCE. Finding copper dust, which also has a mix of other sediments in it in the ice cores, means that this type of copper dust is natural. This leads to the first signs of metallurgy occurring after 2800 BCE, which is incredibly old. These metallurgy events occurred during the same time as the Sumerian civilization that was located on the other side of the world. Determining the place of chronological events in human history takes data and factual information. In between all the clues to determine the age, there's always a chance of misrepresentation and misplacing the events of history. Emerging evidence indicates that the funerary towers across Peru's Andean highlands likely changed purposes over time. Structural details such as ventilation channels and heat-resistant stones support this theory, pointing to sophisticated metallurgical practices. Even ice core sampling also suggests that these towers may be far older than previously believed, offering a fresh perspective on Andean civilizations. This reveals the perplexing advanced industrial buildings or the lost ancient technology that was found in the mountains.